Evening folks, this is BestInSlot and welcome back to Blackrock Park. In today's video we're going to continue, that's not really the word to use, our timber wolf habitat. You'll notice that things are going in a very different direction than what we initially talked about. So last video we worked on the whole indoor star system thing. That's very much still in play. If anything, it's growing. I'm going to show you that in the we'll talk about that in the non-time-lapse part of the video towards the end. But we're moving away from that, and like I said, I'll explain why later. I was racking my brain for an idea for this timber wolf habitat. And one thing I really wanted to do for some reason was like a creek, like a little rolling creek through the wilderness with lots of rocks and trees and stuff like that. And kind of having like multi-level, so it drops down, has like a little mini waterfall now and again. Just a very nice, beautiful, sort of natural looking area, which I think suits Blackrock pretty well as well. So you see here that I'm putting in multiple sort of layers of height, just so this creek has a little bit of a way to drop. It's kind of hard to do waterfalls in this game, especially mini ones, just because the water doesn't stop at the edge. You kind of have to have some land there to contain it, but we'll make it work. We're actually not going to be building the creek today though. I'm just kind of doing the basal groundwork for it right now. As per usual, we needed a gimmick. There had to be something unique about this habitat. Now, with the sort of old build, the idea was to use that sort of indoor resting area and make it a star system, like an indoor star system. But I wasn't totally thrilled with how that was looking, and I don't think it was expansive enough for Blackrock. I'm going to delete this path, so I'm not going to bother talking about it. So instead, I had a little bit of an idea. Around about now, I think. As soon as I start to delete this path is when this idea comes to fruition. But the plan is basically to build a sort of mining cart, track, housing unit, cave, blah 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 blah, all that kind of jazz. The idea being, of course, this is called Blackrock Park, and so far, Blackrock itself hasn't been established. So I figured we'd have some mountains, we're going to have a few more natural features. We're still going to try to keep things very modern, by and large, because it is Blackrock. You'll see here, this is going to be a very sort of rough and tumble looking thing that we build, but there are going to be some modern touches to keep it in line with the rest of Blackrock Park. And the idea is, so Blackrock is called Blackrock because there's this prevalence of onyx, the black onyx. But you can get onyx in different colours, but I think most people realise when you say onyx, you're probably talking about black onyx. There's this prevalence of onyx found within the mountain. Within this mountain, and maybe, you know, in the surrounding landscape. And that's why the white man, when the Americans came in, or well, to be fair, when the British came over to kind of take over the area, and indeed the French and the Spanish and everyone who decided to come over and take over America, they claimed, or tried to claim, Blackrock from the natives in the area because they wanted access to this onyx, because it was used as a gemstone and they could trade with it and it had value. So that's where the name Blackrock comes from. You know, it's always called that by the people who live here because, you know, they found these glowing, beautiful black rocks within the earth, and that's why they established a mining colony here eventually. So that's my backstory. So what we're basically going to do is build a minecart. We're going to build a minecart track. We're going to build like a little housing area. It's pretty cool, and the idea is you're going to walk along it on a fairly modern little bridge sort of area, and to the left you'll be able to look at the minecart stuff, which is, you're going to see me tab out quite a lot for references. So we're going to have the minecart stuff on the left, and on the right you'll be able to look down into the creek and look down into where the timber wolves will be living in the creek below the curvature of the mountain. Not sure where the idea came from, but I think it's a pretty cool idea. I do scrap this. I realise that you have to put the boards down individually, so the next 2 or 3 minutes at least, probably a little bit more if I'm honest, it's me making a minecart track. It takes a little bit of time, it really does, but I do think the end result of the whole thing is really worth it. What was I going to say? Something super exciting. Oh yeah, this whole build, everything you're going to see today is about 3 hours long. It took a surprisingly long time. I would have liked to do the creek as well, but because everything else took 3 hours already, and unfortunately I do not have unlimited time in my day, I figured after about 3 hours we'll focus on the minecart today, and then in the next video we'll build the creek and the wilderness where the timber wolves themselves are going to live. I'm not really sure at this point in time where this fits with the rest of Blackrock. You know, I've made a big mistake here, by the way, you'll notice this. So, a classic thing for minecart tracks, really. which, by the way, are nearly impossible to Google because Minecraft has ruined everything. The wood always sticks out a little bit from underneath the metal railings, and I didn't do it here, so I did end up having to move everything towards the end. I wish I'd realised a little bit sooner, but there you go. Wasn't that big a deal. Anyways, what was I saying? Something exciting and cool, I bet. I actually can't remember. Yeah, so I'm not really sure how this ties in with the rest of the park. I don't want to go too far in a terrain modification direction because we did that very, very heavily with My Pen Rye, and it kind of leads to unprofitable parks and huge parks, and it doesn't really fit this very sleek, modern look we've tried to establish already with Blackrock. That said, it is an area. It's meant to be a real place, and you see I moved it, shuffled it back there. I did try to duplicate it, but for fairly obvious reasons that doesn't work. I've also thickened up the wood quite a bit, which I think helps it out a lot. You'll notice I have no money left at this point in time. I wondered why the wood wouldn't move up. I figured it was blocked by the path. It's really just because I'm obnoxiously poor. Just like real life. So, I do want to bring in more natural features and rivers and creeks and mountains and stuff like that in the distance, in particular, you know, as a backdrop, having some mountains, the black rocks of Blackrock, essentially. But I don't want to go overboard. I'm going to be very, very conscious of that fact that at the end of the day, this is meant to be a hyper-modern zoo. But it's still a zoo at the end of the day. It's still going to have little areas like this, little walks, little sort of bits of history. And this area that we've been building in general has very much been focused on the history of Blackrock. So I think a walking tour where you get to see, you know, what gave its name to this area in the first place makes quite a lot of sense. So, how do you build a minecart in Planet Zoo? Well, as it turns out, we're going to use that right there. I'm going to look at a few other things, but the best material I found for it is actually the New World door, that one right there. It's a door, so we're going to duplicate it, we're going to flip it around, just keep the inside of the door facing inwards. You're never really going to see in there anyway. You could, in fact, if you wanted to, duplicate it again, and then flip it in again and thicken it up a little bit. I was unsure what to do with the wheels, but honestly this works really well as well. That's a wheelbarrow, we painted it black, sunk it into the ground, and okay, it looks a little bit funky in a little way with these little things, but minecarts always have bits sticking off and little bits of machinery, etc. So again, I think it kind of works pretty well. I did have a real image of a minecart up on my second screen that I was kind of using as a reference here, using the girders to give it a bit of a little bit of depth, and again sinking that back in so it looks like the wheels are actually attached to something on the side there. And I actually think this ends up looking really cool. I was kind of proud of this, I'm not going to lie. It was a pretty cool little minecart in the end. I wish we had some darker rocks. I would have liked to use some proper black rocks. We end up using the tundra ones because they're quite dark greyish, but some proper black ones would have been very cool as well. But yeah, minecart sort of worked out, surprisingly enough. I was a little apprehensive, but it really wasn't that bad at all. It's just saving because this was already, shut up world, hour and 20 minutes worth of work into this already, something like that. We are on 8 times speed. Just going to duplicate that as well and just give the cart a bottom as well. Everyone needs a good bottom, and now we have one. Give it a back and a front as well. Really not going to do much more in the details on this, just a little bit more to make it a bit more interesting, but you know, pretty effective. I don't know what that's meant to be. I do put it on, I do leave it on. Now that I look at it, I'm reconsidering it, but you know, I looked at many different minecarts, and there's always stuff going on. There's always little ledges and little hinges, and they're all different in many different ways. Realising I have no money, I go buy some Bengal tigers and sell them. That is how I keep my parks alive when I don't want to hit play. Redoing the mountain a little bit, the idea being that left-hand side, which is maybe the only bit of this that isn't quite finished, is going to be it's where they would house the minecarts, where they would bring them back full of materials and stuff like that. Really, it should be a full circle, but go with me on this. At this point, I was trying to figure out, you know, is there a shape that will look like coal, or like, it was actually going to be coal at this point in time, and the only reason it's not coal is because I couldn't get a rock that looks like coal, so I figured if we get these big chunky rocks instead, dark rocks, put those in there, and we can just say there's veins of onyx running through them, you know, and I think you can buy that, basically, and it looks like quite black rock. We need to put more of this into the mountain as well, have little bits of it peeking through, have little veins of it running through the mountain, stuff like that. But yeah, the idea is this is of course an abandoned facility, an abandoned mining track kind of thing, whether it's real or not, whether it's made for the park, just, you know, like a little bit of a Disneyland kind of vibe going on, is up to you. But you know, at the end of the day, that's definitely the feeling I was going for. What am I doing? It's very confusing. I've got a little tumbled over one there. Right, so I really wasn't sure how to end this, but I wanted to build an actual mine. I really didn't want it to be a big thing, like I said, because again, I don't want to do this over the top. I don't want to have too much on the timber walls. I don't have too much space wasted on the timber walls. I don't want it to be like my pen right. I don't want it to be like the old franchise zoo. I still want it to be a very modern zoo. It just happens to have a walking tour, so I want to get out of here and sink back down to the other side fairly quickly, and that's where we're going to get the rest of the park. We're going to get back to the modernness, blah 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 blah. I might even put a gondola ride or something on that side just to bring you back. You know, you've walked to the end and now you get to go in a gondola around the park. I'm not really sure that I want to keep building there in our modern zoo kind of way, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, got a little mine, going to put some supporting structures on there, big chunks of logs. I was using reference images for basically everything at this point in time, so I do think it ends up looking kind of like a mine. Hopefully, we'll have to wait and see. But basically every single thing I built had real world references of some form. I love making mountains. I know it's something we did constantly in my pen right, and I am resisting for Blackrock, although I do think we need some of them in the background. I love making mountains. There's something very, very satisfying about it. And I do think the best... I used to adore the chisel tool. It used to be my favourite way to do it. But you know what? The more I look at it, the more I think the best way to make a mountain is making a big blob and then attacking it with the flatten tool. It seems to work for some reason. With the... you know, reduced to foundation, flattened to foundation. Anyways, this is the end of the track. You know, you get those little things. You've got the little bolts poking out of the side. It's pretty cool. It's really cool. It looks really good. Oh, sorry. I think when you get the creek in there as well, the whole thing's going to come together really well. Now, I was looking for references here. I was trying to find... That's what I end up using, but I was just trying to find, you know, where would you keep your minecarts, or what would this kind of facility look like? I really didn't want something metal. I didn't want anything too... I mean, metal would have been fine, but I really didn't want anything very modern looking. I wanted it to look old, and like it was there, you know, at the turn of the century. Not this century, but last century. That kind of building style. So, also a little bit that it's kind of inbuilt into the mountain. You know, they built it, and then over time... rockfall and growth and stuff like that, and just over time it's kind of receded into the mountain ways a little bit. So some bits of it do get cut off by the natural textures of the plant, and that's honestly, it doesn't end up looking any more fancy than that. It doesn't need to be fancier than that. That's about it. Now, one thing I really want to do, and this was difficult. I could not find a reference image for this at all. I really struggled, again, because of Minecraft. If Minecraft didn't exist, this wouldn't have been a problem. But I wanted, you know, when you've got a minecart track and it splits off in several directions, you have to hit like a little lever and it shifts the track, and that's how you choose which way you're going to go. I wanted to build that, basically. So that's what we're doing. The idea being, you could either go that way to the mine, or when you come back, you could even hit the end. I don't know if it necessarily even makes sense, but I just thought to evoke the feeling I'm going for, it made a lot of sense. I do end up changing this later on, so I'm not going to worry about it too much right now. I do change how the track looks, but I want the lever in there. I just want these little details, blah 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 blah. As you can see, there's my little lever. That's it. Very, very simple. I'll put those on there. That's meant to resemble a little bit, you know, how it's going to shift. I love these little things, these little metal squares with bolts on. They look really cool. Some rocks around there because it is, you know, the mining facility itself. I really don't know what else I could put on there. I might just leave it as it is. I don't think it needs to be complicated. Right, I do bring some plants in. Maybe one tree too many, I'll admit, but I think having a few trees is okay. I think I only put like 3 trees in total up at the top. Yeah, 3 or 4. I think it actually helps the visual quite a lot, but I do try to keep it relatively chilled because it is a mountain. But a lot of the old abandoned minecarts I looked at, blah 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 blah, they do have plant life growing on and stuff like that. This, you know, logs fallen over, it's kind of split the track up, the rocks are tumbling around, you can see how the metal sort of frayed upwards, and the wood has splintered off as well. Just little fun details, you know? It's just stuff that brings it to life. I was going to put these in for lights. I do decide against it. I was going too far in the Disneyland direction. I think of, you know, when you go into, say, Tower of Terror in Disneyland, Universal? No, Disneyland, MGM Studios, if you're in Florida. And you're walking through this, like, old haunted hotel, and you get into the lift, and it's all very dramatic and themed. And I really like that kind of stuff, but I was going too far in that direction. At the end of the day, this is still a modern North American park. So I was kind of looking, checking what sort of lights we'd use, but I do end up bringing in very modern lights, similar to the other lights that we've been using already. Now, I also wanted a fence, and I went in several different directions with this before, again, deciding on something. I was kind of happy with this initially, just kind of like the rope one below, but with chains instead. I do get rid of this, this is stupid. Give me a minute, give me a minute. There we go. So I decided to try that out with these little, I actually quite like those, the little metal beneath the wood. I thought that looked pretty cool. But it just, the chains are spiky, and it just looks, there's something very aggressive and heavy metal about it, which isn't really what I'm going for in the park. And eventually it ends up being a very, very simple build. It's using these. We're using these metal poles, these metal signposts, and we're just putting them all the way along the side. And it gives it, it's quite nice and modern, it very much fits with Blackrock, and it's also kind of unobtrusive, it doesn't really get in the way of anything, it's just there to make sure that people don't die, basically. That's all I'm looking for, to not let my park guests die. It's really the very basics that I need. So the fence itself doesn't really need to be anything special, so we're just going to put the signposts all the way along. This is going to take a little while. Oddly enough, this does take a little bit of time. So I will think of something else to say whilst that's going on. How long have we got left? About 4 minutes? Something like that? Yep, so up to this point, this probably took... We're probably about 2 hours, 15 minutes in, something like that, I'd say, around. It takes a long time. You'd be surprised how long these things take to build. At this point, I was considering not bothering with the other half of the fence quite yet, but I powered through. I didn't really have much else to do with my day, to be fair, so... yeah, put the fence on both sides, and again, that's very much pushing the modernity. Is that a word? Modernness of the park, whilst fusing it with that sort of the look at the traditional. And really, that's what a lot of Blackrock has been about. It's been about comfort and modern utilities and stuff like that, but very much honouring the past of the place and what happened and stuff like that. I'd like to bring in some storyboards in this kind of area as well, some like info signs telling the story of what went in to this area. You know, why were people here in the first place? Why is Blackrock called Blackrock? You know, why is the mine here, etc. It's just, I like that kind of stuff. And I think more than just being a hyper modern North American zoo, that's very much the direction that Blackrock has ended up going in. This fusion of the traditional and the modern, but with the modern trying to respect the traditional. This bit looked a little bit boring, so I had a look at some mines. Thought I'd just do like a boarded up mine thing. Looked okay. It's pretty cool. Really, not really much else to add on that one. Just little details that kind of bring a little bit of life to the whole area, you know? I think the whole thing's pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. It took a stab at what that might look like. I don't think the wood there really makes much sense, but it's as close as I could realistically get. We're going to do a little bit of work on this bottom bit, and that back wall will be part of the wolf habitat, so I kind of wanted to block that in now. No real reason, I just kind of... At the end of the day, sometimes you got to let Planet Zoo just kind of take you where it's going to take you, you know, just kind of be inspired and do whatever you feel like building in order to maintain your sanity. I work so much harder on Planet Zoo than every other game I ever play. Like, and each franchise video takes like 5 hours in total to do. Oh boy. But yeah, it ends up worth it. Like I said, I'll show you the... Do I end up doing this? I do. I'll end up showing you the what we've done with the star system, which isn't quite finished in the next video. No, at the end of this video, I should say. In the next video, we're going to build a creek, and then what I think we're going to do is do like a tidy video, or like a cleanup video, or like just something where we go around and we do, say, you know, that lake at the start which needs foliage, for example. We haven't written the story of the Ghost of Blackrock. We haven't done that little walk with the museum stuff, you know, where we're going to have the information about the history of Blackrock and all the little stuff. And that's where we'll talk about the coal mine. So I think we might do an episode after the Wolf Creek. So I love the name Wolf Creek, which is also a really good horror film, by the way. Also, I didn't realise you could change these colours. It actually ends up looking pretty cool. I got rid of it entirely, but it does look pretty cool. So we'll do an episode where we just go through and we add all that stuff, and it'll mean the park is done in so much that, you know, everything we've done so far is up to date. Had a little bit of a thing there where they were sticking out, so I just cover those with some rocks. Again, just bringing in those same touches we've had in the rest of the park. I really want this park to have consistent theming constantly. So we're using the same path lights we used earlier on as well. And this means a little bit of work as I take those all the way along the path. They don't even have power. No idea how they're going to get power either, but I'll think of something. I'd also like to put some lanterns up or something like that to have a little bit of a nod to the mining, but I did want most of the path lighting to be very modern, so kind of stuck with the same stuff we've been using all along, but only down the middle instead of 2 at the sides, because that would take too long and it would make me sad. So, how long is left? About 30 seconds. Alright. If there's anything left to say, I will say it in the live recording bit towards the end of the video. But I hope you've enjoyed this. This was something a little bit different, not really what I expected to do. I'll talk a little bit about what's next for Blackrock a little bit more when we shut up world, when we get out of this bit. You guys, you know, you'll need to basically have a slower look at everything, like a less 8 times speed look at everything. I'll give you a good look at that. We'll talk about the creek, we'll show you the star system thing, and we'll talk about plans for the future. Sound like a plan? Sounds like a plan. Right, got rid of that. Cool. Okay, so I'll see you in a second. Okie dokie, here we go. Key. So this is the mine. Okay, so this is a creek. Let's go through this bit by bit. The idea is this is going to be blocked off. This will have a barrier on it. Maybe a little bit of a viewing area here. Yeah, probably nothing complicated. Probably just a glass wall around there, and then that'll connect onto there. Again, I think we're going to use. It probably doesn't make sense to have the building being a barrier, does it? So I think we might put like a little bit of a fence in front of there. And then, basically, this whole area around here, this whole bit up to around the edge of where I've lifted up the dirt, is going to be Wolf Creek. So it's a big exhibit. It is. It's compared to a lot of the others. I kind of want to move the rivers inwards a little bit as well. They're a little bit too close to the mining town. I'm going to put the maximum amount of wolves in there. It is definitely a little bit on the large side, I would say, but I think when this is finished and you've got that up there, I think it's actually going to look really, really cool. And we haven't done... You know, this is by far the biggest exhibit. It's not even close. We haven't done a big exhibit so far, though. Not a proper one. And I think it does kind of, overall, I'd say, blend in really well with the look of Blackrock, that mountain in the distance. It needs a bit of roughing up. I'm going to chisel this bit, I think. Chisel. There. It's better. So... yeah, I think that works pretty well. And again, I don't want to go crazy with it, but I do want to bring in some mountains every now and again, even if it's just as a backdrop, and just make, you know, at the end of the day, Blackrock at the moment is this big flat plain, and I'm not sure that makes too much sense. So if we could bring in something a little different, that would be pretty cool. I kind of want to bring in... I just want to sink these down a little bit as well. They're too big for my liking. That's a lot better. Alright, cool. So I think we'll end up building to the left next time as well. But now we've got a little bit of more symmetry in terms of the size of the park as well. So let's go check out the mine itself. You'll walk down here. This is going to be the history of Blackrock. And now we know the history of Blackrock, at least in some form. It was, you know, obviously a Native American settlement. They called it Blackrock because they kept finding this onyx below the ground. Of course, naturally, they'd be digging, they'd be exploring caves, stuff like that. So we'll talk about that. We'll have like little bits of rock on there. It's like an odd display. I think I might put some glass across this front face as well, now that I think about it. Because it's meant to be like a little museum tour. And we'll have some tools, we'll have some pottery, we'll have some... I don't know, just stuff, basically. And we'll tell the history of Blackrock. And then you'll walk along here. Which just... I would keep the wolf. I'm not sure I'm going to keep the wolf. I'm not sure the wolf makes any sense. I think the rock is too... Maybe just have a cheeky wolf. I don't know, maybe just have him... So I don't know if you even saw it in the video, so it just flashed past, but I did have a little bit of foliage work around here. Did quite a lot of that. Yeah, I will call you Dave. So there's Dave. And I did some foliage work around here as well. This needs a little bit more love. It's a little bit boring compared to some of the other bits. We might just sink some bracken into there now very quickly. I like my foliage to be interesting in case that hasn't been immediately obvious so far. You know, the quickest way to do this actually, let's just get a little bit of long grass in there. That really does... At the end of the day, there's nothing living in here. There's no more flamingos. I could get rid of the barrier. We did get rid of them. That already looks a lot better to me. I think I'm going to keep that. I might even get rid of that. Oh, that's crazy. But yeah, looking pretty nice. Again, probably need to do the same in front of the bear habitat. But other than that, this area is... I think looking really, really nice. Not to like toot my horn a little bit, but I think that's kind of beautiful right there. I'm just saying. That actually might be the nicest shot in any of my parks ever. Anyways, moving on. So anyways, you'll go through the museum. I will, so you see I put the fence in here. I need to put some way of fencing this bit off, but I don't know if this will work. We can give that a go. It's just, it's very, I mean, it can go there, but you see what I mean? It's very straight, so it's kind of odd, right? I don't really see a better way of doing it either. So I think we'll have to come up with something else for a fence there. Maybe just some wooden logs around there. We'll be fine, like wooden, oh, that's a disaster as well. Everything is terrible. There we go. I'll do that over here as well. Doesn't matter if the little sticky middle bit is doubled up. There we go. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'll just put some wooden logs kind of curving around there. That'll be fine. You walk up here. And you walk along. So as you look down, you'll see the creek. You'll see whatever goes on eventually behind this building. Honestly, that might end up just being maybe a mountain and some trees and stuff like that. I don't know if we'll ever even build down there. We don't need the room at the end of the day. This place is humongous and we've got very little else to do. So I think we can make that. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. And that'll kind of blend in the creek a little bit more. And also, it'll give a nicer backdrop to this the bison habitat, which is in dire need of some love. It is immensely boring compared to all the other habitats. I think each one is better than the last, I will say. I think this is definitely better than the bison one, and I think the bear one is better than the pronghorns by a sizable margin again. And then I think this one's going to be even cooler. Anyways, so you're walking along. There's our... so you can see down there, but not really. It's dark and spooky, to say the least. I might put a bit more wood in there. I mean, you can see, but yeah, not really. It's just meant to be a dark, cavernous, abandoned facility, essentially. There's our little switch with the... I think that needs to move. There we go. So there's little details that you don't catch initially, but yeah, this little switch. There's the backboard bit, which has this little thing propping it up, which you may not have seen. Again, based on real minecart things. Walk along. There's our minecart in a little bit of detail with its black rocks above it. The wheels, both just on the inside of the tracks. A little bit of land poking up over here, which, again, I don't really mind. I think it fits pretty well. Moving along. This area is maybe not super exciting, but there's another minecart. Moving along, there's our boarded up cave. There's our tumbled in minecart. You know, it's kind of like they were pushing it along and the tree fell down. It smashed up the wood a little bit. It smashed all the rocks around. You know, you can see there with the girders on both sides have kind of splayed upwards where it's been, you know, wrenched basically by the impact of the tree. And then you walk inside. We've got the foundations. I might put something in there. You kind of just walk along. Got a tumbled in one there, the last minecart. You walk out here. You walk outside, and then you're over here, which I think what we can do. I really don't know. This is getting difficult to like tie everything together. I think I'm going to leave that like that for a while now and just have it end there. Like if people want to walk over there, that's fine. I love how that looks. Can I just say that? Eventually, what we can maybe do is swap this staff path with normal pathing, tie that in with this around here and have exhibits and stuff around here at the back. I think we do need a transport of some description as well. But really, I think we're going to end up moving back over here. So yeah, that's the mine. Hope you like it. I'm quite proud of it. I think it's pretty cool. Still, I think it definitely has the modern touches. I think the colour of the path. I think this little fencing. I think the lights kind of makes it look modern. But then you can look just to the side, and you've got this, you know, proper little mine basically. Yeah, it says the facility, and there's the mine itself. Right. Okay. So next video, creek. And then after that, I have no idea. We still need to do our exhibit animals. We haven't done exhibit animals, so I'm wondering if maybe we'll go back over here to the left. I was going to build... This is where the wolves were going to be originally. You'll see I've actually blocked that in now. I'm wondering if we maybe do... My original plan was like for this big glass science building. Maybe we'll still do that. Maybe that's where we'll put our exhibit animals. Maybe not the dome anymore, but I think we could do... Kind of like if you've been watching my... or indeed played it yourself. If you played the Arctic Adventures campaign in Mexico in the second mission, there's like this glass triangular roof which I think would fit really well with the style we've got going on here. It even uses the girders like this does over here, and I think there's like more modern stuff to this lower left, and then as you get to the top right, it does get more... That looks really cool. It gets more natural looking, so I kind of want to lean in that direction. So I'm thinking, you'll come along here. I have to do something about this. Whenever I move this, it ruins the path, and I can't fix it. I also can't rotate this normally. I don't know what's going on with this transformer. It's utterly crazy. I actually might just have to leave it there. I think you'll walk along here, and then you'll get this like big glass-covered semi-indoor, semi-outdoor area with shops and toilets and exhibit animals and educational signs and, you know, all the science experiment stuff that I wanted to mess around with. And then that will balance out the park really well if that takes up that space. We'd then need something there, but I'm thinking, like I said, like a mountain or something. And then we'd actually be done. I am tempted to bring in the Arctic animals, but I'm also tempted to make like a full-on tundra park. I think that could be really cool, so I'm still considering that. We shall see. Now, if we head into here, I think I might get rid of the wolves, but I still like this area. As you go inside, you'll see... Now, it's not nighttime, so it doesn't look as good, but you'll see I've changed this up quite heavily. Really, the main thing was by adding small stars as well. I've sunk some of the bulb lights into the backdrop, and it makes it look much, much, much more like an actual star system, because it's just covered in stars. So we're going to do the same up there. You can see I've added the black to the roof and to the sides, so we're just going to cover that entirely in stars. Game has booted me out. I might bring in some wall lights over there somewhere. I'm not really sure how, but I'll think about that. Now, what I'm thinking this is going to be instead... So originally this was meant to be the home for the wolves, right? But because the wolves have moved, this is no longer the wolfing... The wolfing? This is no longer the wolf habitat. What I'm thinking of making it into instead is kind of like, you know, when you go to a zoo and you go to like a talk, and some dude will stand up at the front or some lass will stand up at the front, and they'll talk about an animal, they'll talk about stuff, right? That makes sense. They'll talk about things. I'm thinking this is what that's going to be. So what I'm going to do is line this with many more benches, put some education boards about that stuff on the sides, and I think it's just going to be a educational talk about stars, basically, and how maybe the Native Americans, when they first discovered Blackrock and sort of started to live in this area and kind of make it into a home, used the star systems to navigate, and what we'll do is we'll have the wolf there, we'll find Ursa and we'll put that on the side, we'll find a star system, hopefully there's one for bison, and we'll put that on the side, and we'll kind of have the star systems for all the animals, and we'll talk about how, even if not strictly true, how these star systems, the constellations, were invented by these Native Americans, sort of naming them after and seeing the animals of their local area within the stars themselves. I'm kind of making all that up as I go along, but I think that's a really cool idea, so that's the story. We'll have to give it a name, and I need to put a door on here. I need the bloody... You know, the Arctic door is actually the best door. I need the camera to play along with me a little bit better, please. So this would have like a little door, and again, I can put this over here at the side, right? It's like that. And if we rotate that around, lovely, and just pull it out. You know what, that'll do. So that's where the talk person would walk in, and then they'd stand here in front of all the excited people, and they'd talk about the star system. So I'm going to work on that. That will be another thing we do in that cleanup episode after the wolves. I think we could make... You know, I'm not going to touch it. That's what we do in the future. Although I will show you something else I did. Because I did have that idea a little bit earlier. The idea of making it like a... What would you call it? Auditorium? No. There's a name for it. Galaxarium? Galaxstar? There's a name. I cannot for the life of me remember. But there's too much light coming in from the outside. So if you wanted to do a daytime show, you could, because I've added curtains. So here we've got curtains here. There's a metal bar going across the top, which is obviously the bar the curtains would move across. And there's a little rope pulley here to, you know, give it a tug, and the curtains move across. Thought of everything, folks. We'll put in loads more chairs, and it needs a name. If we're going to do it like this, it needs a name. It needs something like that. Yeah, I'll just Google what the actual name is, because for some reason I cannot for the life of me remember. I'm going to Google it very quickly in my other tab. I Googled and I got Star Trek. Okay, so never mind, I'll think of something. But yeah, that is, I think you're basically caught up. So next video, the creek itself isn't going to have anything too special. I might build like a little bridge. I really just want it to be this big, beautiful, natural looking area. What the edge of this looks like, I don't know. It randomly stopped recording for some reason. So anyways, I don't know what I said last, I really have no idea. That's the plan going forward. Next episode, creek, and I'll probably do the backdrop. I'm going to try, if you want to give me suggestions, if there's one thing I need suggestions on, it's maybe something we can do in the mine. I was thinking of trying to build a pickaxe, but I'm not sure we'll be able to do that. But maybe some more details we can put on there, but I'm pretty happy overall with how that looks. Any ideas for the creek itself? But really, how do we end the creek? I'm a little worried about the backdrop here, like putting the wall in and then just making it. I don't need to see the fences. That's the idea. And like, how do we end it here? Like, at the end of it, it's just going to walk off this edge. So again, we need to do the same kind of thing. I think we maybe need to make this mountain kind of go along here a little bit and then drop off and then have a fence coming around there. That's probably what we'll do, but we'll have a little think about it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I will see you lovely folks in the next video. Let me know what you think. Cheers much love as always. Bye-bye. Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you want to help support me a little bit more, you can do so at patreon.com/bestinslot. There's a link in the description down below. Every little really does help in times like these, but it's not at all expected, and by just watching the video you've already helped me out massively, and it makes you a pretty cool person, so well done you. Thanks for joining me either way, I'll see you next time.